people are starting to notice. People are starting to notice. As we launch into 2020, listen to Bloomberg's report on an asset that early adopters earned 9 million% returns if they got in early. And of course, if you got in a little later, within these last 10 years, you earned a little less of that 9 million% returns along the way. Now, the question is, what can we expect from Bitcoin in this next 10 years, in this next decade? Listen to this.
You've been covering this very closely for a long time. You know that there are even more skeptics than supporters. It's more dramatic than the fight over Tesla on Twitter. What do you make of the incredible rise of Bitcoin?
Yeah, it really is stark when you take a look at that chart. You pull it out all the way back to the beginning, which it's really time compressed. You're only talking about less than 10 years of time history at this point, but you can see that really stark performance where you start basically from zero. And if you got in at the very first transaction for Bitcoin, it was 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas, which, when you go to where it was at its peak, $20,000 for 1 Bitcoin, yeah, that is a really impressive return, 9 million%, as you say. But as you point out, along the way, Bitcoin's picked up a lot of skeptics. There's a lot of skepticism out there, a lot more institutional scrutiny, certainly regulatory scrutiny. So obviously the question is, if you buy now, are you going to get another 9 million%? And that seems unlikely, but hey, crazier things have happened over the last 10 years with Bitcoin.
Yes, I like it. Now they go on to discuss how the narrative for Bitcoin has shifted. It used to be a means of payment. Now it's a store of value. What will the narrative be by the end of the next century? I'll link this down in the description below. Check it out. But the bigger question is, can Bitcoin see a similar return, the 9 million% return, in this next decade? And on this channel, you subscribe for a realistic perspective. So let's talk about that. The kind of gains, the returns that we can see on any asset just depends on where we are in this adoption curve. See, it starts with innovators. These guys were the cyberpunks. These guys traded Bitcoin when it was literally worth nothing. Then came the early adopters. That's where we received more media attention, more speculative bubbles as Bitcoin continued to go up and crash and go up and crash, always gaining in value. Public awareness grew. So I would argue we are somewhere here in the early adopter section. Then, of course, after this will be the early majority, the late majority, the latecomers. They'll see the least amount of gains. And if we see some hyper Bitcoinization, then that, of course, the very last people to get in will be the Amish, of course. When they get in, that's when you know we reached mass adoption, when they use electricity. So depending on where we are in this little hockey stick handlebar adoption curve, that directly relates to the amount of gains new adopters will see. Like the video if you appreciate me finding those little pieces of Bitcoin crypto content. But like always, let's get to more news. The Chinese Bitcoin miners are being pressured to scale down due to electricity shortages. Now we'll look at the most recent data for miner capitulation in a second, where we are today. But check this out. On December 29th, the Asia Times, maybe you read it, reported that during the dry season, which extends from October through April, so it's happening right now, during the dry season, the electricity supply drops drastically in southwest China, which is why local authorities are tightening the screws on mining companies to scale down their operations. And keep in mind, this is southwest China. So the mining farms that have, probably the smaller mining farms will be shutting down first, and the bigger ones that have a bigger relationship with the Chinese government, they'll probably be the ones that will be allowed to stay longer. But either way, Bitcoin farms are tolerated during wet seasons only. Did you know this? Bitcoin mining companies are officially prohibited, but are tolerated in the Sichuan province during the wet season when hydropower stations generate more electricity than is required, utilizing the excess energy thanks to East Asia's plum rain. So I guess it's all prohibited, but during the wet season they tolerate it because you have excess energy. Yeah, use it for whatever you want. Mine Bitcoin. However, during the dry season, local authorities attempt to assure sufficient power supply for residents and local businesses, and therefore redirect their focus on the regional Bitcoin farms who use excess energy amounts of electricity to run their mining rigs. So the dry season lasts another 4 months, meaning that electricity will be more expensive in Asia, in China. So what does this mean for you as a Bitcoin investor? And this is the Bitcoin difficulty ribbon. We've talked about this before, but the Bitcoin difficulty ribbon speaks to the impact of miner selling pressure on Bitcoin's price action. When network difficulty reduces its rate of climb, miners are going out of business. The electricity is too expensive, leaving only the strong miners who proportionally need to sell less of their coins to remain operational. This leads to less sell pressure and more room for bullish price action. The best times to buy Bitcoin are zones when the ribbons are compressed. And we see that. For example, when Bitcoin dropped to 3K, great time to buy, the ribbons inverted. And with dry season in China lasting another 4 months, and also the price of Bitcoin going down, notice that the Bitcoin difficulty ribbons are beginning to invert again, suggesting that if this is like every other time that mining, the difficulty ribbon inverted, suggests that we might have a couple more months of this bearish type action, and it might be a great opportunity to buy. You tell me. But next piece of news, the world's largest blockchain-based live streaming platform hosted by PewDiePie begins its migration to Tron. So if you're a Tron fan, this is really good for you. They need a Generation 3 dApp platform, and I guess their choices were, EOS, Cardano's not really ready yet, maybe Ethereum, even though that's Generation 2, but either way, Justin Sun, CEO of the blockchain platform Tron and file sharing platform BitTorrent, has announced that DLive, the world's first and largest decentralized live streaming platform for content creators, with over 5 million monthly active users, is officially migrating to the Tron blockchain. The migration begins today. DLive was originally launched on the Steem blockchain. For some reason, they didn't want to be on Steem anymore, where it reported amassing over 500,000 monthly active users who paid a combined $2.6 million in crypto by June of last year. So it had a working product on the Steem blockchain. Now they're moving to Tron. So, exciting times. Now, Tron is more centralized. That's one of the main reasons, just like EOS. It's slightly more centralized. They need to be to have that scalability. But either way, DLive saw value in them. And what is DLive? DLive's live streaming video community allows users to reward content creators with cryptocurrency through upvote, gifts, donations. Its user-powered upvoting and flagging system determines which content should rise to the top of the platform. So sounds very similar to Steem, where they came from. Next piece of news, the Ethereum developer Virgil Griffith to be released on bail to parents. Finally, a green flag for this guy. Virgil Griffith is slated to be released to his parents' home in Alabama, pending some pre-release conditions after a ruling by U.S. District Court Judge Vernon Broderick in New York on Monday. So just as a reminder, Griffith is being held for allegedly violating the International Emergency Economic Power Act, the IEEPA, by traveling to North Korea when he wasn't supposed to for a cryptocurrency conference organized by the government. And the U.S. government jailed him for it. In a direct quote, "Laws in this country, the U.S., they're not suggestions," Judge Broderick told the accused Ethereum Foundation developer as the hearing began. Turns out laws are laws. But Griffith is now slated to be released to his parents' Tuscaloosa home under a $1 million bond. So it will be a happy New Year's for Virgil. I like that. And last piece of news, China may soon have its first blockchain exchange traded fund. Interesting stuff. Chinese Securities Regulatory Commission, the CSRC, the country's financial watchdog, has recently received an application for listing an exchange-traded fund, an ETF, that will track blockchain-related stocks as underlying assets. So basically, this just shows that China is really, truly warming up. It's not confirmed yet, But more companies now feel free to file these kind of blockchain and pro-cryptocurrency based things with their regulators because China likes blockchain now. Dubbed Penghua Sichuan Stocks Blockchain ETF, the application was filed by Sichuan-based asset management firm Penghua Fund and was accepted by CSRC on December 24th, according to the regulator's disclosure. The proposed ETF aims to track and reflect the performance of Sichuan-listed public stocks that have businesses in the blockchain industry. So this is just going to open up a lot of public investors into these blockchain-based companies, possibly crypto companies, if the application receives final approval by the CSRC. It would be the country's first completely blockchain-themed ETF open to public investors. I like it. Anyway, that is the video for today. How you guys spending New Year's? Will I see you out tonight in the Hollywood, Los Angeles area in general? Let me know. And Happy New Year. See you next year. Ha.